Hi, we're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust. And apparently, as early retirees, we are a burden on society.
Someone actually said that in one of the comments when we first started out the channel.
So, what we want to do in this video is to just explore that a little bit more to see if, as early retirees, we really are a burden on society.
When we early retired 3 years ago, we really wanted to start our new life just living really simply and getting out and adventuring, which is one of the reasons we're sat in our camper van at the moment. We're actually out on a trip in Scotland at the moment.
So, in 2021, we made the decision to early retire, and we actually made that a reality in 2022. And back then, our lives were very, very different. We were both working really hard in our professions. We were teachers. We were very, very busy parents. Without realizing it, I think we were a little bit stressed out at work, and we didn't really have the freedom that we wanted in our lives. We were tied down to working for someone else, working to someone else's terms, and we just really wanted that freedom within our life.
We had always planned to early retire at the age of 55, which is when we could access our teachers' pensions. But we did have a pretty rubbish 2021. Life kind of took over. So we made the decision to jump that little bit earlier. But yeah, our initial plans were always to early retire at 55.
I think it is fair to say that early retirement and the whole concept of early retirement is a hot topic at the moment, and it's a topic that really divides opinion as to whether people are for it or against it.
And over the past 3 years since we've been early retired, both on social media, within the mainstream news, and actually some of the comments that we've had thrown at us on our own channel have been quite divisive. Some of the comments such as,
"It must be nice living off the rest of us."
"You're just consuming without producing, taking and not giving back.
"If everyone retired early, society would collapse."
It's a selfish decision."
So as you can see, some of those feelings and some of those emotions are pretty strong. So what we want to do in this video is to explore some of them and see how much of them are an actual reality in terms of what we've experienced and what other people have experienced in their early retired lives.
So I guess at the heart of this video, what we actually wanted to have a look at is, what do you define as contributions to society? Do we really not contribute anything at all back into society just because we're early retired?
And stepping away from work, obviously there are things that we no longer contribute. So we are not paying as many taxes as we would do if we were earning a full-time salary in our career. But there are so many ways that early retired people can contribute to society without actually working within that corporate ladder or contributing in terms of those taxes.
So we have done a little bit of research and we've looked into it as to what do early retired people do with their lives? Do they just hang around doing nothing at all, or what are they doing to contribute? And one of the biggest things we found talking to people is that they are early retired because they wanted to help their children who are parents, and they can't afford the huge childcare costs anymore. So you do find a lot of early retired people that are grandparents are actually supporting their children by doing a bit of childcare for them.
Yeah, and as old as we may seem, when our kids were young, we were entirely dependent on our parents' support in terms of helping us out with that childcare, and it enabled us to go out and contribute and do those
Yeah.
jobs that we just would not have been able to do.
Yeah, Mum used to have Georgia and Luke a couple of days a week, and I would not have been able to go back to my part-time teaching job if she hadn't done that. I couldn't have afforded the childcare, or I could have afforded it, but actually all I would do is work to pay the childcare. So there is a huge number of grandparents out there that are helping contribute to society by being the childcare for their children.
And probably linked a little bit to that in terms of phases of life. We've found that as we are getting older now, and we had a lovely quote from someone on the channel about becoming carents, as looking after your parents. And that is something that we hadn't really perceived as we stepped into early retirement. But by having so much more time on our hands, we can give more time to our parents for when they need it. So a prime example was with your mum over the summer.
Yeah, when Mum needed her knee operation, she had a full knee operation. I moved in with her for a month just to make sure that she was okay, rather than her having to get care in. And also with your mum, there's been so much that we've had to deal with, whether it be the fact that she needed all of her house sorting out for us to be able to sell it so that she could afford to actually be in her care home. And actually for a year, we were your mum's carers. We were pretty much housebound up in the Dales looking after your mum.
And I don't know how that could operate without people being in that position and having the free time to do that, because even though now mum is safely in a care home, she still has needs, she still has things that need to be sorted out, and us having that freedom of time to do that, if we weren't around and we didn't have that freedom, I don't actually know who would do that for mum.
When we talk to a lot of people that are early retired, something that does stand out is most people don't early retire and absolutely stop doing nothing at all. Most of us do in some way have part-time jobs, whether it be like us working and doing our YouTube channel, or we're actually on a campsite in Scotland at the moment, and we've met a lovely couple, Sean and Alison, that have given up their work down in Cardiff, and they're now actually working as campsite wardens because they wanted to get out of that career that was just so time consuming and stressful, but they still wanted to work and earn a little bit of money so that they could do the things that they wanted to do in their early retired life and get out travelling as well.
And one of the things that we definitely feel perhaps a little bit guilty about because of our travel is that we don't give as much time as other early retirees to volunteering. So we know that within our local community and within the communities we drop into, early retirees are doing an awful lot of voluntary work that just would not happen without their goodwill and without their volunteering of their time. Now, we sort of square that a little bit, don't we, with what we do on the YouTube channel, because we always set out on this channel to provide a sort of a portal or a service for early retirees, because when we were going through that process and making the decision to early retire, there wasn't really that much out there. So that's what we're sort of giving of our time doing. We absolutely love it, and it's certainly not a full-time salary and it's certainly not a job, but we're loving the time that we are giving to that.
But if you look into a lot of the charity work that goes on, or if you look into a lot of things like my sister works in the food bank, volunteering her time, there is a huge amount of work that's going on with people that are either retired, early retired, that are giving of their time because they have that time to help others, and they do it quite selflessly.
And I think one of the beliefs out there about early retirement is that when you make that decision to early retire, your life stops. And it clearly doesn't. So we continue our life and we are continued to be members of society. And when we're doing that, we're also contributing into society because we are spending money. We are spending our own money. We have to live. We have to buy food. We have to travel. We have to pay our bills at home. And it just doesn't stop in terms of when you are early retired. There's no magic sort of wand that's waved over to make all of those things disappear. So those are still quite significant contributions.
Yeah, when we're travelling, we still go out into the different communities and we make sure that we are spending in those communities. We will visit the different shops. We will use the campsites if there are places there so that we can help support those communities still.
One of the final big contention points that we believe in, or certainly I believe in, is that we've been paying into the system for over 30 years. And during those 30 years, we've been paying our national insurance throughout. I've been a higher taxpayer for 30 plus years. And all of that money has gone into the system. So it's not as if we haven't made a contribution. And clearly, the longer people work, the more contribution that they make into that system. But I don't know whose decision it is to decide when enough is enough. And I think that when we made the decision to early retire, we've genuinely felt that we have paid enough into the system for the simple and the quite frugal life that we now lead.
Ironically, not that it was planned, but with us actually doing the YouTube channel and earning now, we've got ourselves into the situation where we will actually be paying taxes again, which was not something that we thought we'd have to do until we get to the state pension age.
No, but it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
one of the things by early retiring is we have continued to pay our national insurance contributions, which is really important because, we don't want to be getting to the age of 67 and having a reduced pension, but we also want to have that feeling that we've paid our dues.
Yep.
So if we move away from this idea of contribution of early retirees and look at the idea of early retirees being a burden on society, I think some of that comes back to what I raised in the last point, in the fact that as a early retiree, we have contributed over 30 years of payment into the system, and we actually haven't taken anything out of the system in our early retired years.
Yeah, we've been retired for 3 years now, and we have actually been living off our savings. So it's been a strange feeling changing from being savers to actual spenders. We've not been able to put any money into our savings until recently. We still run our house. We still have to pay our full contributions for the council tax. Obviously, being early retired and retirees, you don't get a discount for that. So we're still paying in, for most parts, the same as you would have done when you were working.
We've definitely tried to do in our early retirement is to live intentionally independent. So we don't want to take out of the system. We actually want to give back to the system. And by living a really simple and modest lifestyle, we think that we've definitely got much less waste in our life, and we're actually living a frugal life that is a really enriched early retirement experience.
One of the things that's really surprised us since we've been retired for the last 3 years is the emotional roller coaster that we went on at the beginning. That feeling of worth, that feeling of purpose in our lives when we first retired.
And I don't necessarily think it's just us, because we've
No.
had loads of comments on the channel, and I think it's to do with how society sees work absolutely linked to worth. And if you're not working, then sometimes you feel that guilt of, do I actually have any worth? And certainly lots of people have shared with us their feelings of losing that sense of identity or losing that sense of purpose when they step away from work. And we've talked a lot on the channel about that, haven't we?
We have, and there's no right or wrong answer to that. For us, we actually love the fact that we've got the freedom. We have no feelings anymore that we are not worth anything. We just love getting out traveling. We love doing our YouTube channel. We do feel like we're putting a bit back into society, I suppose, through some of the work that we do through our YouTube channel. So we don't feel that we're not worth anything. But for some people, there's a real loss of purpose in their lives, and I think that's quite a hard one to get your mind around.
One of the big things that we talked about right back in the early days was when you introduce or when you meet someone for the first time, probably one of the first questions they ask you is, what do you do? And we'd always answered the same thing, that we were teachers for 30 years. And when you step into early retirement, how do you actually answer that question? But we've sort of squared that around in our own head, that working life is, and the working role is, only one part of what makes you you, and there are so many other parts that have perhaps been a little bit neglected in working life.
And when people used to ask us when we first early retired, I think we were quite sheepish. You'd sort of go, well, we're early retired. Actually, now we just say quite proudly, we're early retired, and we're really enjoying making the most of that time that we've made. I know there are a lot of people that find that really hard. We know lots of our friends and family that really find it hard to make that final decision to retire, whether that be early retire or retire at retirement age, because that feeling of worth and that feeling of purpose is a really strong one, and you have to square that in your own mind.
I guess it just really comes down to, when is enough enough? And what we shouldn't be doing when we look at early retirement is thinking that one size fits all, because it doesn't, and it's a very individual decision. And I think you know best when enough is enough, and as long as you're happy with that, then everyone else should be happy with that.
Yeah, and you shouldn't get society to judge you and do something just because you feel you shouldn't do it. It should be right for you. So when we looked into the question and we were thinking, are we a drain on society? We decided to reframe it and look at it a different way. Early retirees actually contribute a huge amount into society. And I firmly believe, actually, without some of the contributions that we make, society wouldn't be able to run as it is.
So without early retirees giving up their free time for childcare, for looking after elderly relatives, for charitable work, I'm not entirely sure how those systems would operate within society. And I think probably going back to some of those strong views at the start of the video, it was probably all based around society looking at contribution to do with financial contribution. And I think one of the things of preparing for this video is we've realized that there is more to life than just financial contributions, and that as early retirees, we've got so much more to contribute rather than just simply the financial aspect.
And as we say a lot in our videos, time is the biggest thing. We have the time to give that freely to society, to do the voluntary work. And there is a whole army of people out there that do that.
One of our strong beliefs on the channel is that in early retirement, it doesn't mean things stop. So it doesn't mean your life stops, and it doesn't mean your contribution stops. It just means that things change. So your life changes, it's a new chapter, and your contribution to society also changes, and that's a new chapter in your life as well. And if I could share with you a quote that we've seen, and I can't actually remember where we've seen it, so there's no credit here. We didn't retire to escape life. We retired so we could live it fully and give back in our own way. It's a new chapter of life.
So what do you think? If you have enjoyed watching the video and you've got some comments that you would like to share with us below, perhaps the way that you contribute to society, maybe your views on are we a burden on society, just pop them in the comments below.
But that's it from us from this week. It's been a little bit out there. We hope you've enjoyed it. We've certainly enjoyed thinking about it, and we'll catch you this time next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.